was Jamaica's first native Governor-General. Is this fact or fiction? Stick around for the answer at the end of this introduction. The answer will also be posted on our Facebook page. On the agenda in this session, a statement is to be presented by Dr. Andrew Wheatley, Minister of Energy, Science and Technology. Dr. Wheatley is also expected to provide answers to questions from Member of Parliament Mr. Philip Polwell. The sectoral debate continues in this session with presentations by the following members: William J.C. Hutchinson, Michael Phillips, and Michael Stewart. The sectoral debate is a public debate in the House of Representatives in which cabinet ministers and junior ministers are expected to record their performance and their projections since the previous year, while opposition spokespersons on the various portfolios will seek answers and criticize or support government programs and policies. It should be noted that the agenda can be adjusted with items being added, removed, or replaced. If you are planning to attend a session at Gordon House, here are some rules you need to keep in mind. No visitor shall create any act of disorder within the precincts of the House. No visitor shall be admitted to the House without first obtaining an admission card from the office of the clerk. Visitors who remain within the precincts of the House during a suspension of the session are asked to keep silent. No photography, videography, or sketching of the proceedings is allowed unless so authorized by the presiding officer, and there should be no smoking inside the parliamentary building. It's about time to go over to the proceedings, but before we do that, let's get the answer to our parliament trivia. The Most Honourable Sir Floresville Legaspo was Jamaica's first native Governor-General. It's fiction. The fact is, the Most Honourable Sir Clifford Campbell was Jamaica's first native Governor-General. According to the Jamaica Heritage Trust website, the Most Honourable Sir Clifford Campbell was our Governor-General from 1962 to 1973. Now over to the proceedings.
Mrs. Robinson, Mr. Hutchinson, Dr. Wheatley, Dr. Tufton, Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Malahoo Ford, Mr. Spencer, Mr. Green, Mr. Terrelong, Mr. Main, Mr. R. Scott, Mr. Azan, Dr. Bloomfield, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brown-Burke, Mr. Buchanan, Mr. Bunting, Dr. Campbell, Mr. Campbell, Mr. Leslie Campbell, Mr. Clark, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Miss Daly, Mr. Daly, Mrs. Dalrymple Philibert, Dr. Dunn, Mr. Fagan, Dr. Ferguson, Mr. Golding, Dr. Guy, Ms. Hannah, Mr. Hales, Mrs. Holness, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Kellier, Dr. McNeil, Ms. Nita, Mr. Polwell, Mr. Michael Phillips, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Pickersgill, Mr. Redmond, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Stewart, Reverend Thwaites, Mr. Dwayne Vaz, Mr. Wright. Mr. Wright?
Statements by ministers. Mr. Speaker, we will be having a statement by the Minister of Science Technology this afternoon. But before inviting him to make his presentation, I have to express disappointment at the absence of the opposition spokesman who spoke at length concerning a matter related to the Petrojam facility. And the minister is here and will be speaking to that particular situation, and there is no one here. The substantive minister did not speak in that way. Member.
Yes, he did advise the Parliament. And besides, you didn't tell him last week that a statement will be made this week. Mr. Speaker, I am the spokesperson for energy, and I'm quite capable, as with my other colleagues, of hearing the minister and responding accordingly.
Dr. Wheatley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speaker, sorry. Mr. Speaker, on May 25th, during the last sitting of this House, the member for St. Andrews Southeastern raised concerns about what he deemed to be serious issues involving at Petrojam Limited. Mr. Speaker, the member alleged that there were major project overruns at Petrojam and a lack of control over operations. More particularly, the member alleged, Mr. Speaker, that 30 million in donations were given to constituencies of politically connected persons. He also alleged that there were no proof that the donations were actually made to the receiving entity, citing, Mr. Speaker, one unidentified school and mentioning the sum of $20 million. Mr. Speaker, after giving no supporting information for the allegations he made, the member then went on to call for a probe by the Auditor General's Department and the new Integrity Commission. Mr. Speaker, the unsubstantiated allegations suggest that Petrojam is engaged in the kind of activities which run counter to its mandate. I wish to use this statement, Mr. Speaker, to provide facts about the governance of donations from Petrojam. The first fact, Mr. Speaker, is that Petrojam has a